Hello and welcome back to Vox Terra, aka Hidden Agendas. So as I mentioned in my comment section, I need to conserve on time now because sadly after 5 years of this show or more possibly, it really hasn't exactly led anywhere to me. So I'm looking into more of a podcast format, less visuals. So let me know how, but it will allow me to more quickly, rapidly respond to current events. Let me know what you think. So today, as you may know, Donald Trump was recently found guilty on 34 felony charges in a New York criminal trial. And this one I'm setting to Democracy Now! May 31st of 2024. Well, what I want to focus on is he spoke to reporters outside that Manhattan courtroom after the verdict was announced. And the soundbite I really just want to tease out was him saying this was a disgrace, but not just that, was him saying, "You have a Soros-backed DA."
Here, and everybody knows what happened here. You have a Soros-backed DA, and the whole thing, we didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man.
A Soros-backed DA. Well, what is that all about? What's going on there? Why is he mentioning George Soros? Well, George Soros is a Jewish financier, a very wealthy man who apparently survived Nazi persecution, and I believe it was Hungary. And this man is often placed at the center of what I call false conspiracy narratives, bandied about in so-called, and I say so-called conservative and so-called right-wing media outlets, because, you know, I don't attack people on their political identities. It's aspects of those identities or hidden agendas within them that I'm going after. So Soros, I've often heard put at the plot of some sort of secret socialist or liberal leftist scheme, wanted to bring in illegal immigrants. Even I heard him being accused of wanting to establish a caliphate, which is like an Islamic theocratic state. And to me, these feel contradictory that he's placed both at the center of like this very liberal, but also caliphate, because as far as I know, he's getting blamed for both the LGBTQ cultural shifts, but also Islamicism. Those two trends, those two social trends are pretty contradictory. But placing Jewish people at the center of what I call false conspiracy narratives goes way back in time. And you may question why in the modern context, so many people who have "I stand with Israel" yard signs on their lawns, which are generally meaning so-called right-wing Israel, so-called, hold down the Palestinian Israel, to exclude them, a version of Israel, why they stand with Israel, but they're also obsessed with George Soros. What's going on with that? Well, that's an interesting question, and I'll get to that. But tossing out Soros is like a dog whistle to ethnic nationalists or even neo-Nazis. Because if you actually know anything about the Nazi worldview, which isn't really taught in schools, understandably, but in a way you're kind of missing their whole narrative and why it has some appeal to people. Well, in their minds, especially crystallized under Hitlerian thinking, they believe that Jewish people are part of this secret plot to undermine their racial integrity or racial strength and weaken them so they can be dominated and picked apart. And Trumpers often scream at me, they're not a racist, or Trump's not a racist. Hey, you know what? I'm not judging you if you're a Trumper, and I'm not weighing in this video on Trump's own feelings, but if you look at Southern Poverty Law Center, plenty of racist groups do support Trump. And you should question why our media ignores that. Well, why am I saying Jewish people are placed at the center of false conspiracy narratives rather than just being one of these people dismissing all crazy conspiracy thinking? Well, because going back to that Nazi takeover of Deutschland, Germany, we need to look at what happened there. Germany got screwed after World War I. Everybody basically knows that. And the German people wanted to know who to blame. Well, what I would call the true left, or the communists or the socialists, the anarchists, are blaming capitalism, that system of rich and poor and endless exploitation. And they want to replace it, in the case of the communists, with some type of a worker-controlled state. Now, the Nazis, contrarily, instead of focusing on the wealthy or this class struggle that Marx talked about, They instead are focusing and singling out people they're claiming to be wealthy, claiming to be manipulative, Jewish people, and other ethnicities. And you can see how that argument at a time when everybody's stressed out would gain some support among elements of the German wealthy who understandably feel threatened about having all of their wealth and power taken away from them by the communists. So now fast forward to today, and Trump he's really a booster, in my opinion, for the most reckless elements of the business community. Fossil fuel, petrochemicals, business as usual, tax cuts for the rich. But instead of focusing on these big industries that are dominating our society, similarly to those old days, and by the way, I'm not saying Biden is Trump's opposite. Biden is more like what we would call the Weimar Republic of Germany, but we'll get to that in maybe a different video. Trump, this booster for business as usual, freely advocating pumping our biosphere, although he wouldn't word it that way, full of greenhouse gases and carcinogens, with his deregulated pro-drill baby drill economy, wants us to focus on Soros, a Jewish financier. But you see how that's distracting from the very real conspiracy that there's a lot of money in fossil fuel petrochemicals, and they are really running our society and our thinking and our media. So what's up with this whole, people, I stand with Israel and mourning about George Soros? What's up with that weird contradiction within so-called conservative movements? And again, I myself hold some conservative issues that I more agree with than I do with the liberals, but I'm simply using that as shorthand. Well, we could say Israel itself is somewhat currently dominated by ethnic nationalists. And it's that simple, we stand together as ethnic nationalist movements around the world, locking arms together, but separate. And then someday, if that vision wins out, I guess what happens? People within that ethnic nation can argue about who's really one of them, and they can all battle each other. Okay, amigos y amigas, I hope you found this interesting, muy interesante. If so, please make sure you are subscribed, you're commenting, you're liking, supporting at Patreon. Thank you to my two patrons, Bella Lagrissi, and Environmental Coffee House. And before I say, as always, peace be with you, before I say that, I guess I just said it, please let me know what you think of this podcast style format. And as always, until next time, peace be with you.